Hi, this is Kirk, the bariatric carnivore. Well, I ran across something really interesting the other day. It was called a pulse point. And it was this guy from his website, his YouTube channel is called York Cardiology. He's an interventional cardiologist from England. And he was talking about a thing that I've never heard of before called a pulse point. And what that is the pulse point is when you take the high number from your blood pressure and subtract the bottom number, and the difference is the pulse point. And that can tell you some interesting things if your blood pressure is about normal. Because if it's too low, where there's no real difference between those two numbers, that may mean your arteries have gotten harder than you might think. You may have a lot more atherosclerosis than you might suspect. And it's worth consulting and letting a doctor know. And what's cool about living in this time and period right now is if you're not quite sure, you can actually contact him and do an online consultation. That's really cool. You know, that you can find people that understand these issues, and you can find the best people and you can meet with them, you know, and they'll only charge you like $50 for an online consultation and get your questions answered. And, you know, they'll let you know, hey, this is something that's so serious, you need to go take care of it. But, you know, some of the cool stuff, I started looking up what a pulse point was and what it could tell you, and it's interesting. For instance, it doesn't tell you much if your blood pressure is like way too high or way too low. So back, for instance, for a while, when I was coming off of alcohol and some other medications, my blood pressure skyrocketed. It was 220 over 180. Okay, I still had a pulse point of 40, but who cared? The blood pressure needed to come down at that point. So that it didn't tell you much at that moment. And frankly, most of what they really care about with a pulse point is for emergency rooms type stuff. It can really tell you a lot if you're septic, if you've got internal bleeds and stuff like that. But as far as your overall health, not much, except for the fact that it might be important to help you understand just how much damage you may have done with a standard American diet over the years and hardened your arteries. You know, that to me would be something very interesting to be, you know, if that was my case, if there was like very little variability in there, yeah, I'd want to be talking to some trusted carnivore or keto doctor who specializes in this stuff about how to make my arteries more flexible if it's possible. You know, frankly, I don't know, but you know, it may be something you may want to be aware of. So that's what a pulse point is. But it got me thinking about this, that if you're like me, I don't have a primary care doctor. I don't go to the doctor's office very often. And frankly, when I do, they don't do blood pressures right. And that's important. So there are certain things that you really shouldn't play with, and blood pressure is one of them. But frankly, the way they do it in a doctor's office doesn't work. See, every study that's been done on blood pressure medications where they're trying to figure out, you know, what a normal blood pressure is and all that, is done very differently than it's done in a doctor's office. When you go to your standard doctor's office, the way I remember it is, you know, you drive over there frantic because you're going to be late for your appointment. You get checked in, that kind of ticks you off. Then you get done with that, then you start waiting. And the doctor's usually running behind at this point. And by the time they bring you back, you know, they weigh you, they're talking to you, they're asking you questions. You're sitting on the exam table, your feet are dangling. You know, you're holding your arm out as opposed to it being rested on a table. And they're talking to you the whole time. And you're kind of in an agitated state. And this can add 10 to 20 points in your blood pressure, which is a real problem because all of a sudden it looks like you're hypertensive when you're really not. You're just not calm. The way they do these things in studies and the way you're supposed to do your blood pressure is you're sitting in a high back chair, calm, preferably dimly lit for maybe 10 minutes to get settled before you do it. And you have your arm on a table, stabilized. And the blood pressure cuff and the machine should be about chest level. And so that means you need to be doing this at your kitchen table with your arm on the table and it takes about 10 minutes. And what's really cool is, you can buy one of these really good home blood pressure testing kits for about 30-40 bucks, and it takes 3 measurements, which is really important. You want 3 good measurements. The machine averages them together and sends the results to your cell phone, and so you got a good record of what your blood pressure is over time. And that can be very important, because if you're just starting this journey, odds are you're on some sort of blood pressure medication. If you're somebody that's over 50 and you've been eating a standard American diet, because you probably went to the doctor and you got your blood pressure checked the way they do it, not the way it's supposed to be done. So check your blood pressure as you start this process out at home the way you're supposed to. Quiet, 10 minutes of rest, high back chair, feet on the floor. Do that and get the 3 measurements. Then check and see where you really are, not what your doctor told you. Then, if you start doing a keto or a low carb diet and you're starting to incorporate some high intensity strength training, some sort of resistance training, your blood pressure can come down pretty darn quickly. And you need to be monitoring that, because if you're on this, look, when my blood pressure was 220, they gave me some medication that day. I went and had it filled. By the next morning, my blood pressure was down to normal, 120 over 80. And but I was getting lightheaded. I mean, that was a major shift. Well, you can have almost the same type of shift when it comes to taking care of your health. And you don't want your blood pressure too low, because that increases your risk for falling. So you need to be monitoring this. But this is not one of those drugs where it's a do-it-yourself project where you just start taking yourself off of it, because the rebound can be pretty substantial. So be telling your doctor, hey, I'm making some diet and lifestyle shifts. I'm going to be monitoring my blood pressure at home, and I'll let you know if it starts to drop too much. And if, he may give you some numbers, saying, hey, give me a call if it drops below this. Hopefully, if they're a good doc, they're going to let you know what the cutoff points are. And if it starts to drop below that point, then talk to them. And they may want to reduce your medication, because that makes sense. But there's certain medications you just don't want to cut off on your own. Some I have no problem with, like, for me personally, they suggested I do statins. And I was like, okay, there's 2 of them that have anti-inflammatory capabilities. So I was like, okay, I'm willing to try them. Tried them, and I got all the side effects. I mean, the leg cramps, the whole 9 yards, and I just discontinued it. That's the medication that I knew that, if you just discontinue it, it's not going to cause any rebound. So I wasn't worried about that one. The PPIs, on the other hand, I knew that was a problem. Those are things like Prilosec and drugs like that reduce stomach acid. And I had been put on that many years ago, and I had serious GERD, and they told me I was going to be taking that for the rest of my life. So I'm taking this medication, and then I find out there's a lot of problems with taking PPIs for an extended period of time. You're not getting the magnesium that you need, and there's reasons why you have stomach acid. But that I knew from my own research, because it's an over-the-counter medication, you just don't want to quit taking overnight, because the rebound is serious. And I did a video on that one, so please take a look at that if you're on PPIs but you want to get off. I went to an every other day for a month, and then every 3rd day for a month before I finally went off of that one, because I didn't want that rebound stomach acid, which can be really painful. But with the blood pressure medicines, after the withdrawal period was over, my blood pressure really started to drop. I was making, the health changes, plus the body got used to the withdrawal from alcohol and a couple of other medications. And, my blood pressure was getting to the point where I was getting lightheaded every time I stood up. So worked with my doc, we reduced the amounts. Finally, it got to the point where it was low in the mornings, and we talked and said, hey, look, I think I need to get off of them. And he looked at it and said, yeah, I think you're right. And so I went off of them, continued to monitor my blood pressure at home every morning and afternoon, and boom, normal blood pressure, off of all medication. And that's the safe way to do it. You just, that, like I said, there's some projects that are, you can do it yourself. Others you want the professionals. Blood pressure is one of those things that you want to leave it up to professionals. But what's really cool is because of the era that we live in, you can now pick your professionals. I mean, for $50, you can do an online consultation with almost every major medical specialist in the planet. And you'll get the best advice from somebody that you trust, and they will let you know, hey, this is something that you just can't talk about and do it yourself. This is something you need to go get these type of tests done. And they can provide great guidance. And that's really the way medicine should work. Doctors should be teachers, and they should be trusted health advisors. And what's really cool about doing things the way I do them, where I don't see the doctor that my insurance company assigned me, but instead I seek out the best advice from people that I trust, that's important. And I'll give you another example. I got a blood test. I order my own blood work, and noticed that one of the biomarkers for kidney function was way off the charts. I mean, it looked potentially dangerous. So I found a carnivore doctor who also understood kidneys and said, hey, do you do online consultations? And, the secretary set it up, $50. Next day I'm talking to him online, doing a Zoom call, and showed him the results. And he was like, oh yeah, you're a carnivore, aren't you? Yeah. Said, that's going to throw that marker way off. Take this blood test instead. So I went and had that blood test. Those results were normal. But, it's amazing, $50, got great peace of mind, got great advice. He taught me a little bit more about kidneys. 15 minutes, we're done. No driving, no muss or fuss. This is a fantastic time to be taking control of your own health. There's a lot of technology out there that you may or may not be aware of that can really help you out. Good doctors are fantastic. The horrible thing is the medical system has made them all into a very psychopathic system where they're not looking after your health. Only you can look after your own health. Frankly, that's it. So you have to take some responsibility for it, but you have tremendous resources with the internet, with great consultations, with good doctors, and utilize it to the best of your ability. And here's to your good health, guys, because in this fight for our health, we're all alone. But thankfully, we can all be alone in this together. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. I try to put out a new message every single workday. If you like this message, please hit the like and subscribe. Please join our tribe. Leave a comment down below about the things that you're doing to take control of your health. That's an important thing. And I will talk to you soon.